As animation transitioned from analog to digital workflow, tasks which would prolong production by weeks and even months were shortened to mere days. The large multi-plane cameras, the stacks of paper, the bottles of messy paint all had their purposes relocated into the computer. In the transition, certain aspects of the craft have been lost, such as the richness of the paints on cells and the vibrant glow of backlight animation. Now, these things can be simulated to an extent. However, what always ends up being lost is the infinitely subtle permutations that occur within texture. A cell can be copied and painted digitally. However, since it isn't painted with physical paint, the textures will be uniform and flat. This is why you may notice a lot of tradigital animation using filters and other extra polish to make up for this. When you look at colors on a sequence of cells, there is almost always a flicker caused by certain imperfections in the consistency of the shades. This may also come from the line work, even if it has been painstakingly applied, but especially if it's been Xeroxed. It's what I like to call the flicker of life, which exists mostly in pre-digital media such as film itself. So, when we take a hand-drawn process like cell animation, and then photograph that with 35mm film, the grain from the latter will provide almost a breath of life that pulses each second. The same can also be said for backlight animation, another technique quite easily emulated digitally. However, again, we find that the result is often too even, and it typically misses the atmosphere of the analog version. This is because it's not real light. Extra steps have to be then taken to add imperfections to give it more life. The actual process for backlighting goes like this. Animation is photographed normally, however, the areas which will glow are usually painted black. Then the camera is wound back to the precise frame where the shot began, and a counter matte is placed down. What was previously black is now the only transparent area on the cell. There is a counter matte for each regular cell requiring a backlit element. The light is shown through this, and the necessary gels are applied, as well as any shifts in exposure to animate the waxing or waning of the light's strength. There may also be multiple passes required, where film needs to be rewound again to expose a different area with a different color. Then, with various camera filters, you can affect the shape of the light, making it diffuse, sharp, or giving it a dazzling eminence. Backlighting, sometimes called filtration, is what defines much of animation from the 1980s, especially in regard to anime. However, I wanted to focus in on one frankly awe-inspiring example of the technique, 1982's Tron. Though discussed mostly because of its place in the history of computer animation, Tron is perhaps the greatest example of backlight animation ever. Practically every kind of permutation of this process can be found in the film. From pulsating exposure to passing mesh and other textures through the light, most of the computer world was actually represented through a combination of airbrushed backgrounds and hand-drawn backlit lighting effects, with select scenes incorporating CGI. Since director Steven Lisberger's studio had pioneered extensive use of backlight, it only made sense that it would be so integral to the look of the film. What made Tron so unique was the manner in which lighting effects were used on the actors themselves. Every single frame of the scenes involving the characters was rephotographed using a complex method of rotoscoping and backlighting. Codoliths, large 12.5 by 20 inch transparencies made of X-ray film, were custom punched to accommodate animation peg bars. Each shot required up to 6 different codoliths to be photographed in various passes, as demonstrated here. Mark Kimball, in charge of software development on Tron, stated, "With 75,000 frames to be shot, you have 700 background cells, 75,000 body holdout mats, 75,000 continuous tone cells, 75,000 high contrast reversed cells, 75,000 circuit reveal mats, and 40,000 holdout mats just to expose the faces or eyes of the actors." If this sounds ridiculously confusing, just know that the visual effects supervisor, Harrison Ellenshaw, said that making Tron was like trying to tunnel through a mountain with spoons. Plus, you had an entire set that the camera moved through which was designed to be backlit, and the addition of various other lighting elements on top of those on the characters. Never mind all the other background elements that involved various processes. But when it all came together, it looked glorious. There are other examples of lighting effects in animation which are more subtle. For instance, in The Thief and the Cobbler, a great deal of variations on backlight animation were used. To create subtle atmospheric light effects, certain parts of the background were re-exposed with varying degrees of light and filtering. Even some unexpected objects like this ball had subtle filtration going on. Of course, the 3 golden balls also utilized backlighting. On one particularly gargantuan tracking shot, the film had to be rewound about 10 times according to cinematographer John Leatherbarrow. However, all this back and forth in the felt-lined interior of the reel created static electricity which actually manifested on film. In looking at these efforts, which, for most of us, seem unimaginably daunting, I'm not saying that we return to a purely analog age, as if that were possible. What I do want is to share the knowledge of how these works of art were created, since that accumulated awareness of art history does inform what we make today. And though it's likely none of you make animation with 16 or 35mm film, understanding how things were made before can inspire us to pursue a visual look that can now be more easily achieved with the tools we have, but done in a way that it becomes something new. For some even, a balance of traditional and digital elements can help imbue animation with that flicker of life, which is often sorely missed.